Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Harvey here, Success with Dynamic Duo, and my billionaire sister from another mister, Julia Patterson. Welcome to today's episode. Fasten your seatbelts, turn off all your distractions, pay very close attention, and grab a notepad with a pen. You might learn something today because I learn something every day. Yeah. If you're not learning to grow, you're dying. Let's grow to help you change your life once and for all. Take it away, Julia.
Thanks, Sean. Welcome, Jackie. We're so glad to have you here with us today. It's just awesome to be able to finally connect with you. We've had a little bit of issues, and we just persist, right?
Yes.
So Jackie's from good old London, Ontario. So you got 3 Canadians on here today, which is really exciting. And I'm just going to introduce Jackie here. Jackie was a bookkeeper with a thriving business, a happy marriage, and a comfortable home, who was well respected and loved by her community. When she lost her sister suddenly in 2012, it was a catalyst she needed to start seeking and growing beyond anything she'd ever imagined for herself. As she worked through her grief, she discovered a gift for speaking from her heart and a way of relating intuitively with other women. So she began running workshops, groups, and retreats, and 4 years into her healing, she began her own coaching business. So Jackie, I can imagine you have a huge impact on people, and we're so excited to have you on today. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to share your story wherever you want to start. If you want to start earlier than what I shared in the intro, that's fine. Any aha moments along the way, which I know you've had lots of. Anything you want to share, I'm going to add to that because some people aren't comfortable sharing everything, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And also what keeps you motivated and inspired on a daily basis. I know that's kind of quite a long list, but I know you can handle it. So take it away, Jackie. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julia and Sean, for doing this for people, because I know sometimes it's really hard to stay motivated, especially when we work from home and we work by ourselves. So it's great for people like you that are making these sorts of things available for people. So thank you for that. So yes, my name is Jackie, and I live in London, Ontario. And my story starts probably back when I was 16 years old, 17 years old, and I became a mom. And that sort of threw everything out the window. Mostly because I bought into the ideas and the beliefs that other people had about what that meant for me. And so what happened was that before that, I'd been, quite a good student. I'd been a really great person in the community and volunteering and all kinds of wonderful stuff. And, the whole world was open. When that happened, of course, people went, oh my gosh, her life is over. She's ruined it. It's done. It will never be the same. And I, being, a young girl without a lot of experience, I bought into it. And so I spent the next several years feeling horrible about the one mistake. And I use that word very, very, very loosely, the one mistake that I made, because in truth, my son actually saved my life. I was in a very low place, and he gave me a reason to strive for more, to continue working, to look at something of importance outside of myself. So the end result is about 10 years later, we had been struggling with his special needs. He had some learning disabilities and such. And so keeping him in school, keeping him in childcare was a bit of a challenge. So all of a sudden I woke up one morning, and I'd gone to school, and I had this education, and I had this piece of paper that said that I knew what I was doing in something, and had to leave the job because I couldn't find childcare that could keep him, and I couldn't keep him in school. So I was left with the choice of, what do I do now? Do I continue being a mom to this boy, or do I find another solution to the challenges that I had with my work? And so I kind of went home and I licked my wounds a little bit, and I thought about things. And one day I was sitting on the couch and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And thank God that this commercial came on TV. And the commercial was about a program through the government. I think it was in the States, actually, but it was something that sparked something inside me. So, program through the government to help people start a business. And I thought, interesting. So I started making some phone calls, and I ended up getting a hold of a resource center here in London, and it's called the Small Business Center. So I called them and I said, what is this about? And they said, oh yeah, there's this program, come on in and apply. So I went in and I went through the whole process, and they liked my idea about starting a bookkeeping business. And so they put me through these classes. They helped me get set up. And I went out there and I started my business, right? Start my business. And I promptly fell flat on my face about 25 million times because the truth of the matter was I had no one in my world that was in business. So how do I know what to do? You know, everybody's got jobs, and being in a job is a whole different world from being in a business. So how do I go and find work? And what do I do when they don't want to pay me? And what do I do if they don't want to say nice things? And how do I handle myself? Because, you know, in a job, you would handle yourself this way. And in a business, you got to put on your big girl panties and do things a little bit differently, yes? So if I wanted to survive, I had to figure out what I had to do. So I'd get back up, I'd learn my lesson, and I'd move forward, and I'd fall down again, and I'd get back up, and I'd move forward. So the first, I don't know, I'm going to say probably 2 to 3 years of business were really, really tough for me, to the point where if I'd had another option, I likely wouldn't have stayed in business. So thank you for the challenges that kept me here, because now I'm here. Yes?
Yes.
Almost 20 years later, now I'm here. So the challenges that kept me in the game were the stuff with my son, and the challenges within my family, and the needs that I had to fill, or felt that I had to fill within my role as mom, as wife, and so on and so forth. Yes? Mm-hmm. So I kept going, and I kept going, and eventually we moved to Trenton, and I started my business there. Now, if you know Trenton, Ontario, it's sort of, I don't know if this is politically correct, but it's sort of the armpit of the world. And it is one of the toughest places in Ontario to start a business. So I spent, I don't even know how long, probably a year and a half trying to start a business up there. And just as it was starting to really flow, my husband was laid off for the second time inside 6 months. And I had hit my limit. I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. I'm so tired of struggling to pay the rent and struggling to keep food on the table and struggling. So he'd heard about Alberta, and, you know, it really looked like the land of milk and honey. So I said, I'm going, you know, and he went, well, I don't know if I want to. I said, that's okay, I'm going. So eventually he decided that he wanted to join us. So we packed up the cars, and I kid you not, we packed up the cars. We left the, you know, the important stuff that you can't give away, you know, the stuff that you just have to, like the blanket that I brought my son home from the hospital in, you know, that sort of, give that stuff away. But we gave away everything else. We sold what we could. We packed up a car with our son and our dog, and we got on the highway. And I kid you not, 3 weeks after we made the decision, we were on the road and on our way out to Alberta. And it was the best decision that I have ever made. It was fantastic because we went, and, you know, you had two choices. You can either make it work and figure it out, or you can go home with your tail between your legs. And there was nothing to come back to because we had nothing left. We didn't have a home to go back to. We didn't have a couch. Like, we didn't have anything. So we lived in a hotel for 3.5 months, and we all got jobs. Yeah, one room with a dog and 3 adults. Yay! It was fun. I said to my coworker just before my birthday, she says, what do you want for your birthday? I said, I really just want to be able to close a door between me and the other people in my family just for 5 minutes. So anyway, we went out there and we got started. And, you know, like, that was just find a place to live, find work, pay the bills. But it was so fantastic because what happened for me was it started a belief system. It started me being able to believe that I could achieve. And it was sort of that piece that needed to happen to let go of all of those messages that I had received when I was 17 years old and had thrown my life away. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
So all of a sudden, here's this opportunity. And I will never forget, somebody said to me before we left, they were like, oh my God, Jackie, what a great thing. You're going to this place and no one knows you. You can be whoever you are, and they can't even for a minute believe it's not true because they have no history. They have nothing to compare it to. So for the first time in my life, I was able to just show up. You know, I showed up, and I'm a married woman with a teenage kid and a dog and the guts to jump in a car and drive across the country and start a new life. And that's who people knew me to be.
Something, Jackie?
Yes, please.
When you had that moment, and this is for the viewers.
Yes.
When you had that light bulb moment, say, we need to get the hell out of here and go to Alberta, and your husband was kind of, well, should I go? Should I stay? I'm like, well, you're married, so you don't. Happy wife, happy life. And as far as I know, last time I checked, he should. How long did it take him to jump in the car and get behind you in this?
I'm going to say it probably took him a couple of days. You know, he's got family here too, right? So it wasn't just let's go. It was, oh boy, who's going to take care of mom and who's going to handle this? And there are logistics, you know, there are things that need to be considered and whatnot. But I had sort of gotten to a place where I thought, you know what, we have to do for ourselves now. Like, we got to figure out how to take care of ourselves, and we're not here. We don't do that very well. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the viewers, when you have that moment, and I know there's a lot of brand new entrepreneurs that are going to be watching the replay, watching live.
Oh, yay.
The scenario is, okay, so when you have that thought, you have many thoughts going through your mind at the same time.
Yes.
Should I? Shouldn't I? What if? I don't know. All this crazy stuff going on, and you just said, you know what? Screw it. Let's just do it.
Right.
What was that point that you knew deep inside of yourself, whether it be mentally, like in between your ears, or your heart, that said, you know what, Jackie, you're going to be okay. Just go and do it. What was that? Was there something that you experienced, that something that you heard from somebody that you talked to? I mean, what was it for you that said to you that it was going to be okay, even though there was a part of you that didn't think that it was going to be okay? Did you have an aha moment like that? Was it somebody that you talked to? Was it, you know, a book you read,
it was
something
an internal.
like that?
Yeah, it was totally internal for me. It was just I'm going to call it a knowing. I don't know what else to call it, but it was a sort of a faith. I was very involved in a church in Trenton, so I was very much in tune with my spiritual side, and there was just this right here in my heart. I knew that it was, you know, you also get to a point where it's like, what do I have to lose? You know, there's nothing here for us. We can't make it here. And we've tried, you know, you bang your head against that brick wall enough times, right? It was just like, we've got to take a chance. Worst case scenario, we come home with our tails between our legs. That's the worst thing that can happen. No one's going to die, you know, so we lose a couch and we have to buy a new one. Oh, well, right? But it really was more about a faith thing for me, of knowing that I had to try something different because things were just not working.
Right. So back to my comment. The reason why I'm asking you this is because I want people to understand that there's certain things in their lives, you know, we settle in jobs, we just kind of coast. We're going to get a paycheck, we come back home, and it's really miserable for people. And people don't understand that, you know, you work your life away. We have to work to live. We don't live to work.
Right.
And you took that leap of faith to just say, you know what? I know that we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this, through thick and thin. And here's the other part, guys, watching this. It's not easy being an entrepreneur. It's not easy getting out of that comfort of having a paycheck every 2 weeks. Because I'm pretty sure that Jackie had a lot of craziness going on inside of her mind when she's leading her husband and her son to a brand new province. So my point is, when you get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, good things will happen for you in your life, and that's what happened to you. Is that pretty much on point, Jackie?
I would say that's right on point. Absolutely, Sean. There's a video. You know who Steve Harvey is?
I love Steve Harvey.
Oh my gosh. There is a video on YouTube, and I want to say it's something like You've Got to Jump or something like this. And I've seen that recently, but I am telling you that so describes that period in my life of you just got to jump and trust that something is going to catch you, you know, because what else can happen?
Build wings on the way down.
And funny that you bring that up, Jackie, because just a couple of weeks ago, I was at that frickin' point that I just had to jump. I just had to jump.
Awesome.
And I know that thing, I got goosebumps talking about it. That had like 21 or 22 million views. Yes. And Steve, and he's hilarious. He's a comedian at the same time, and he's like, you just gotta freaking jump, man. Just jump. Yes. Even though a part of you doesn't think that you're going to be successful in that entrepreneur journey, whatever it is, you just got to jump to a different part of the earth to experience something totally different that is life-changing and life-altering. It's amazing.
Yeah. When you, like, it's that whole idea of when you stay where you are and stay doing exactly the same stuff, nothing's going to change, right? So if you know in your heart that something has to change, then you've got to change what you're doing.
And Jackie, I know you've moved back to Ontario.
Yes,
How hard did you find it to move back? Because you're now a different person. Have you?
Oh, yes.
The people that, like, I actually had somebody that they moved from Ontario to Alberta, and they moved back because same situation, you know, they elderly parents, you know, whatever, right? Jobs, whatever was happening. They moved, and then within 6 months, they went, "What did we do?" They came back again.
I actually know people who have done the same thing. So for us, when we came back to Ontario, I was really sick, and we didn't know what was going to happen. So I found out actually a few months later, once I was on the mend, it required some surgery and stuff like that, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong for a long time. My husband actually thought I was dying. So we came back home with that. You know, like, what are we going to do? We don't know if I'm going to be able to work ever again, all of that kind of stuff. So that was the reason for coming home. But what I brought with me was everything that I'd learned, right? So all of that confidence that I'd built and all of that, like, wow, I'm really good at what I do. You know, I didn't understand that here because I hadn't had a chance to really figure out my magic. Does that make sense? Like, there's a magic in every one of us, a combination of skills and gifts that's unique to every single one of us, right? And once we see it, then we know it's there. Before we see it, we can be scared crapless because we don't know, like, why am I here? What am I doing here? What is the point of all of this? So for me, that was the big shift. That was the gift that came out of making that move, of having the courage to go ahead and do it. That was the gift that I received, was being able to see that part of myself or those pieces of myself and starting to understand their value, right? And also the confidence of, you know what, it doesn't matter where I go, I'm going to land. I'm going to land on my feet. I'm going to figure it out because I have done it. I've moved across the frigging country with nowhere to go and no job to go to, right? So if I can do that and manage to make it, I'll figure it out. So that's what I came back with.
Yes. Jackie, what helped you get back up when you fell down? Was there books that you read? Was there something that you can share with our viewers on why it's so critical to take care of the roots inside of our 2 ears?
Yeah, I think one of the gifts that I received along my journey was I actually joined, they're a different name now, but I joined an MLM company. We're still in Ontario. And they were really, really, really big on personal development. And that was such a gift for me because the positivity and the belief in self that I gained from, I'm trying to think of what books I would have read because there were so many. But like going to the conferences, going to the meetings, so if someone's involved in that, go to the meetings, get involved with the people, listen to what the trainers are telling you, the books that they're recommending. Oh, Lord. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think back that long. That's a long time ago. But it started my personal development. So any of that stuff that talks about belief in self, about mindfulness, about mindset, and shifting your mindset into a more positive space, I think any of that stuff can be helpful if somebody's struggling with those things. Because the point is developing that belief in self, I think. And that's the piece that gets you back on your feet. You know, you can have people that help you get back up as you go along your journey, but whatever it is has to come from inside.
And to complement what you just said, Jackie, the world is a pretty negative place. Let's be real.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way of being nice about it.
Yeah.
The number one reason why we talk about personal development, guys, ladies watching, is if 80,000 things on a daily basis are negative, you're driving to work and that guy cuts you off and you swear at him and boom, there's a negative thing. You reacted negatively, you got a comment that was negative.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like in a bank account. You withdraw, you withdraw, you withdraw, you withdraw, you withdraw. No deposits going in. You're bound and determined to be in overdraft. So if overdraft is where your life is, and that's where most lives are negatively, and you're not putting positive personal development things into your life, you're going to be overdrawn for your whole life, and that's why people are the way they are. The introverts are the introverts and the extroverts are the extroverts. And I'm happy to say that I'm an extrovert because I had enough negativity in my life when I was growing up as a child. So my point is, you got to start feeding your emotional bank account in a more positive way. Get around people that are going to bring out the best in you. And I'll revert back to when we're a child. The number one thing that people have, that's a challenge is, little boy wants to be a firefighter. And the first thing that grandma or mom and dad do is smash that kid down verbally and say, no, you don't want to do that because you're going to run into burning buildings. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. You're going to put your life at risk. And now you've shot down little Johnny or little Julia's dream of being a firefighter. We got to stop doing that. We got to encourage them more. We got to praise them more, and we got to fill our lives more with personal development so that we can help us become a better person and lead our lives so we can actually give people outside in the real world hope that there is good people and we are in a positive world, because love and positivity change a lot of things. Yes. And I believe that we don't have enough of that in the world.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with that. I think one of the things that I can remember, and I think it was reading, I want to say it was a book by Jeff Olson. So the company that I worked with was Prepaid Legal. I don't know if you've heard, they call themselves Legal Shield, I think now. But Jeff Olson had gotten involved with the company and written one of the books. And one of the things that really stuck with me was he was talking about walking through an airport, and he came across this woman, and it was something about, you can read 10 pages of a good book every day. Just 10 pages, right? That's all you got to do. It's so easy. 10 pages of a good book a day, and over the course of a year, you read, 15 books, right? It's that easy. Just 10 pages. Thank you.
Light Edge. So it's amazing.
Right? Those are the sorts of things that you put in, and it's all about, like, what you focus on is what grows, right? So if you focus on your fear, if you focus on all of those people telling 17-year-old Jackie, you've thrown your friggin' life away now. All of your potential is gone, my friend. Like, you might as well just get comfortable in the dirt over there by the, Cinderella, by the fire pit, because that's where you're going to stay for the rest of your life. And that was what I believed for, I don't know, way too long, far, far, far too long. So when I start reading books like Slight Edge and going and seeing speakers who are talking about, you know what, I've come from this awful place and you can do it too. You plug into that and you get around those positive people that can help you see yourself for what you really are, and not all of those little voices that told that person, no, you can't be a firefighter. No, you can't do this. Everything is wrong. Chicken Little, sky is falling, right?
Yes.
It's true. So when we are around those people, then holy heck, right? Like, the fear can be so huge and it can be so real. And when you focus on that, then that's what you've got. That's all you've got. But when you can look past it and understand, like, fear is an outdated thing, right? Like, it's great when you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger or a dinosaur, but it's not terribly helpful in this day and age, right? Right. So it's that getting, like you said, uncomfortable. Understand there's something great out of that, and keep moving forward. And ask for help if you need to, but keep moving forward no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is that most people are 3 feet from gold, and you see that little liner. There's two pictures. One is like right there, and then one is like 3 feet from gold, and then most people are willing to just turn around and go back.
Yeah.
And we all have endured some pretty big challenges in our lives. It's how we pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and keep moving forward in what we want to do in our lives and our businesses. So many people are willing to give everything to their bosses when their bosses don't give a flying crap about anything. But yet we won't give our lives and our dedication, our blood, our sweat, and our tears for a business that's going to truly change and leave a legacy for our families. It's mind-blowing.
Yes. It
Sean,
absolutely
I have to
is.
disagree with you on one spot for that. The people that you work for, they have businesses. Guess what? They're doing it for their family. So who do they care for? It's their family. They're going to do what's right for their family, right? So it's not that they don't care. It's just they don't care specifically maybe so much about what happens in your world, right? Because they have a business to run. So we take that and we switch it around and we make it about our family, right? So, but being different, we can actually do it differently, right? We can make that choice to do it differently and care about our people that are working with us too, right? Jackie, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what happened with your sister. Like, I know you said that was 2012.
Yeah.
And obviously you'd moved back to Ontario by that point.
Mm-hmm.
And were you healed by that point? Were you doing okay physically? Were you like, and then you had this basically another big emotional upset. Tell us a little more about that.
There have been a few of those little hiccups along the way. So we came back to Ontario in 2010. I had my surgery sort of late summer-ish. There were some complications, so on and so on. So by December, I was sort of getting back on my feet again. I had already started working because, people like us, we just kind of keep working. So I had already started to put feelers out in the world. I had some networking groups that I belonged to. I had a couple of clients. But I don't know where this came from. So I'm gonna give myself credit for this one because I don't know who else to give credit to. But I remember I smoked at the time and I was standing outside having oh my gosh, how am I going to get this business going again? How am I going to do this? I'm starting to feel stronger. I need to get this going. And I started to just have this sort of visualization of pushing a rock up a mountain. And I thought, you know what? All I got to do is get it to the top of the mountain and then it's just going to go on its own. I just have to keep pushing forward and get it up to the top. And then momentum's going to take it and it's going to run away on its own. So that's what I did. And about 6 or 8 months later, I was at capacity and hiring my first person. So over the next few months, I'd moved out of the house. I had an office in the downtown top floor, beautiful, blah, blah. Couple of people working for me, phone kept ringing. Everything was going great in the business. And then one day I went to work and long story short, my husband called me that afternoon and said, you need to come home. And he had been sick. And so I said to him, well, are you okay? Because I thought maybe he needed to see a doctor or whatever. And he said, no, he was fine, but I needed to come home. So I had heard on the radio that there was a car one when I was driving into work that morning, and I knew my sister drove through there. So I had sent out this sort of, Jen, be careful mentally. It was her. So when he called me and he said that her husband was at the house, I said, oh my, like, you have got to tell me that she's okay. He said, honey, I'm so sorry, I can't. So that was a really tough day. And about 15 minutes later, when I had composed myself enough to actually be able to go down to where my car was, I realized that I hadn't heard from Mom. And nobody had been able to reach her. So I called my husband and found that out. And I got in the car and I drove to my mom and I got to tell her that she would never see her baby's face again. And that was probably one of the hardest moments of my life. So going on from there, we got through all of that stuff. And guys, can you give me just 1 second? Because I'm just getting a notification that I'm almost out of battery. Lorraine, could you help me and grab the cord from my computer so we can get it plugged in, please? Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay.
So she, I was busy really taking care of my mom and taking care of my my sister, my surviving sister, they're twins. So, you know, I went through this whole, I don't even know what to call it, but this whole sort of thought process that their grief was worse than mine. Their loss was more than mine. You know, mom had lost her daughter, and I'm a mom too. And I thought, oh my God, I don't even know how I'd learn to breathe again. Like, that has just got to kill you. And, you know, the twins, well, you know, they'd shared the womb, right? So like, they'd been in each other's pockets their whole lives. How do you lose that person? You know, so I went into my business person mind, and I got really serious, and I just took care of everybody else and completely ignored my own pain and my own grief. And I did that for, I'm going to say, probably pretty close to a year. And then something just sort of fell apart, and I started to understand myself no service and doing nobody else any service at the same time. And I started to get curious, and I started to explore. So I started to go into these classes where they talk about really weird stuff, like, you know, energy work and things like this. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. But those shifted. They started to shift my belief again. And I started to figure out different gifts. And then I would have people that would say, oh, Jackie, do you want to tell your story to my group? Do you want to talk about resilience? Do you want to talk about how to bounce back from grief? Do you want to talk about this? And I went, okay, like, why not, right? Why not? So I started to go out and talk to these little groups mostly of women, because in my experiment that are for this stuff, but in my experience, most of the time it's women who are seeking those sorts of things if they're in business. So I would go out to these groups, and I would tell my story, and I would talk about my sister, and I would talk about, you know, things like having a relationship with yourself, because here's my sister driving to work one day, and I know she had other plans. I know there were things, because we talked. I know there were other things that she wanted to do. She was going to do, you know, and all of a sudden she just wasn't here anymore. So we go through life, you know, and we do what we have to do. We do what everyone tells us we should do. And what started to come through to me was, there's a reason that you're here, you know, and is the reason that you're here what you're doing? And if it's not, then you need to get busy figuring out what that is and start working toward it. Because nobody else can tell my story the way I can, and nobody can identify with people the way I can. So if I don't do it, who's going to, right? So where it hit a real turning point. Have you heard about Mo Mondays? I don't know if they have that out where you guys are.
No, I haven't.
No? So it's a thing that they have monthly. They started it in Toronto, and they've spread out to other places. But there was a group here in London, and it's about motivations. They have local people, just regular people, get up on a stage for 10 minutes and tell their story. So somebody challenged me to get up on that stage one day. And I was like, okay, I'm talk to the organizer. And they said, okay, fill it out. Great. So I filled it out. About a week later, I came home from wherever the heck I was, and there was a message waiting for me on my phone. Somebody's canceled. We need someone to fill in. Will you come and be on our stage in 3 weeks? And I'm like, yes. Exactly, Sean. Like, oh my gosh.
I know.
But yes, I will, because I believe that the universe presents us with challenges and with things when we're ready for them. So I trusted. And I said, okay, if this is showing up, then this is something that I need to do. So I started to write, and this is one of the things that I do when I'm processing stuff. So I started to write and write and write and write. And what I found was I was going into deeper places of the grief than I had ever gone before, because I had been so focused on everybody else and taking care of everybody else. And I finally one day got to a point where I started to write about my loss, you know, and about my big sister, and that she had taught me how to dance and how to drive, and that was my pain. And all of a sudden, it was really clear that My mother's loss and sister's loss, although very important, were no important than mine. And that mine was incredibly valuable because it was mine. And so I was writing all of this crazy stuff. I don't know how you guys feel about like God, universe, whatever, things being put in our path and whatever. But I was determined I was not going to talk about that. That one was raw, and that is deep. Like, it still brings tears to my eyes when I think about that piece, right? Mm-hmm. I was not going to talk about that on a stage. My first big performance or talk in front of hundreds of people, I am not talking about that. So they said, okay, I have 3 things to talk about. I had my list, and I got up on the stage, and I'm like, wow, I'm actually doing a good job. People are laughing, you know, and that person's crying, and oh my gosh, I'm really connecting with these people. And I did my first 2, and then the third one went poof right out of my head. So now I have minutes to fill, and the only thing that I can think about is this bit about how my life or my loss was just as important as everyone else's. And so now I'm on the stage, and I don't know what else to talk about except that. So I go into that, and I make myself, you know, like I'm the one who's getting naked on stage here. I am opening my heart to places that I don't know why I'm opening this up to you people, but I am. The end result was that I had probably 20 or 30 people from the audience waiting for me when I got off stage that night, waiting to talk to me, cry with me, share with me that they had experienced something very similar and they'd never been able to put words to that. I had people coming to me months later saying, you changed my life that night. Wow. And I didn't know that I could have that kind of impact. I didn't know that I had that inside me. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yep.
It was huge. It was a huge thing to see how little Jackie, who screwed her life up when she was 16 years old and got pregnant, this little Jackie actually made a difference in someone's life tonight. Like, big difference in someone's life. And what do you do with that? Do you know what I mean? What do you do with that? So that was when I started to pursue, what does this mean and where can I go with this? Because clearly I have a gift, you know, and I don't say this with arrogance. I say this with absolute humility. But I have an ability to speak to people that touches their hearts. So how can I use that to help people? And then it just kind of went from there. Then it started with, you know, working with women one-on-one and coaching with groups. And I love, but coaching groups and speaking to different groups. And I've done several different engagements. I think the largest audience so far is about 400 people that I've spoken in front of. And I talk about all kinds of different stuff. I talk a lot about resilience because to me, it's mind-boggling that somebody has to tell us that you got to keep going. You know, I went to an emergency room with my son one night and I picked up this magazine and I thought, oh, this is great. It's got this article on resilience. Yay, maybe I'll get some tools that I can use to, you know, to write or to talk to people or whatever. So I pick up this magazine and I got it's just like basic stuff about when something knocks you over, get back up and figure out where to go next. You know, and I thought, well, how do we not know that? How do we have to write articles about this stuff? How do we not teach our kids it's okay to fall down and just get? So I talk a lot about that stuff.
I'm doing that now. They don't. They just do not.
But we've always done that. So where are we falling down in this day and age? Where are we falling down that we're not teaching our kids that?
Well, I think from what I've experienced is most people live logically. They don't live emotionally. Mm-hmm. And because you've connected with those people, Jackie, your story, I mean, we all do it. My story doesn't mean anything to anybody but me. But guess what? Mm-hmm. You've inspired so many others that have went through some form of same tragedy in one way or another, whether it be a friend, a family member, a sister, a brother, an aunt, an uncle, that you've had that. You had your own spotlight because you were that naked soul and shared your story. The biggest challenge that people have is that they don't want to share their story because they're scared about what other people are going to say or think. Yeah. And frankly, once you throw your pride and your ego over the wall like you did and you were in that naked soul, you've really connected here, not here.
Yes.
And when you emotionally disturb people, and I say this all the time, people live logically. When you emotionally disturb people, if there's no emotion, there's no motion to change their lives.
Mm,
and you help them do that, and we love you for that. That's awesome.
thank you.
I connect with that. I'm like, wow, that's like amazing for you to do something like that. And people are, and I'm sure before you got up there, when those two things were said and you were on that third one going, okay, that third one's gone now. I got two choices. I say nothing for the next 3 minutes, or I talk about and naked soul. Is that right?
Yes.
Because I've done it too.
That was exactly.
I've done it too. You know, you're given these 5 topics, you got your 30-minute time zone and you got your 15 minutes, and now you're like, oh shit, what do I talk about now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to talk about my story. What brought me here? And my largest group that I've got the pleasure and the blessing to talk in front of is 2,500. So
Nice.
kudos to you for doing 400. That's awesome. Most people would rather die than get up and talk to people on stage or do videos. I would rather do videos and get up on stages rather than die.
Yes.
Just me.
But you don't discover that until you do it, right?
Well,
Like, I had no idea.
here's the funny part. The very first time I was actually thrown up on stage was I was given my 2-minute speech. Hey, Sean, you're going up for 2 minutes. And I'm like, what? I'm not going. No freaking way. I literally had sweat marks that were 3 inches long on my blue shirt all the way down. I was dripping, soaking wet like I never showered for days. I was
Awesome.
Awesome.
oh my God. And then I'm told 2 weeks later, and there's no notice, oh, by the way, you're doing the front half of the presentation. What?
Fantastic.
Oh my God. Same thing.
I love
Buddy literally come up to me and says, here, you better take this. You need this. And he goes like this. And I walked across the stage and I went like this. And I was dripping. And I say to everybody, that's why I wear an undershirt. And they laughed. And I made my point. But no, thank you for sharing that, Jackie. That was awesome. Guys, you're going to have to get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. And I know Jackie and myself and Julie have all done that. I just want to say this. Thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing your story, how you started, how everything came about. I mean, to share that you lost your sister. And this is the part of why we build a business, guys. It's not because we want a bunch of money and glory and we want to be arrogant and all this other craziness. It has nothing to do with that. See, it's a matter of whether or not your life our lives can change in a 30-second heartbeat. You're driving to the grocery store with no seatbelt on. Boom, somebody blows through a red light. Boom, you're now paralyzed. Your life could change. It's not a matter of if the storms are going to come into your life. It's a matter of when. Do you have your family bulletproof in every area to make sure that your family is looked after and left in a good position? The answer for most people is no. That's why we beat this dead horse like we need to beat it, because it's not a matter of if, it's when. What are you doing to protect your family? And one of my mentors said to me, if you were to lose both arms and both legs in an accident, how long would you be able to survive and support your family based on the decisions that you've made today? The answer for most, not very long. Go make a difference. Go do what you got to do. Thank you so much. And yes, I'm talking to you out there. Go make a difference in your family's life once and for all. We love you all. Thank you for watching. See you on the next edition of